Evening all. I'm known on YouTube and social media mainly for two things. One is eating biscuits, and two is an interest in history. And sometimes people ask me, what history channels on YouTube would I recommend? Well, for those people who ask that question, you're in luck because I'm going to give you my top 5 history YouTube channels. Okay, at number 5, my choice would be the various channels of a chap called Indy Nidell. Now, he's got 3 channels. The one that brought him to prominence is called The Great War, and it's a fascinating channel. Its core is a week-by-week analysis of the Great War, pretty much in real time. So each episode goes for about 10 minutes long, will detail the events of a week in the Great War, and you watch them all in order. And along with that, he would do special episodes looking at weapons, tactics, the participants, the generals, and other areas of interest. And he would do a Q&A session as well every so often for viewers. And it's great. It really goes into incredible detail about World War One. And he after that he has another channel which is called Between Two Wars, which look at the kind of things that went on in between World War One and World War Two, with a look at how the effects of World War One would later impact on World War Two. And now he's currently got the World War Two channel, and he's using the same format that he used in the Great War, which is at its core this week-by-week analysis of World War II in real time. And he's only just started this one, so it's only been going for a few months. He's up to the fall of France at the moment, so get in there early. I'm catching up. I'm up to towards the end of the Russian-Finnish Winter War on it, and he as I said, he has these 10-minute things, very well presented, very well researched, great use of archive footage. He's got some archive footage you perhaps wouldn't have seen, and of course going into this amount of detail means that he can look at the lesser known aspects of both World War One and World War Two. So as I said, he's watching about the fighting between Finland and Russia, something that doesn't get a lot of coverage. He also looks at the fighting between China and Japan in the Pacific region. Fantastic detail, great use of maps, great real in-depth analysis. And also, by doing it week by week, you avoid that thing where a lot of historians become omniscient and go, oh, if only they'd done this, then this wouldn't have happened, this would have got better results. By doing it week by week, Nidell is showing you how decisions were kind of made in the context of the information the combatants had at any given moment. And that's what I think really marks out. It's fascinating to see how these conflicts unraveled and progressed using this week-by-week format. So definitely check that out. So it's Indy Nidell, The Great War, Between Two Wars, and World War II. And number 4 is a channel called Military History Visualized. This is run by an Austrian chap called Bernard. And he's really data driven. So what you'll get is a lot of infographics explaining various aspects of different conflicts in history. A lot of his stuff is World War II, but he will go back and look at 7 Years' War or Napoleonic Wars or World War I, other conflicts as well. But he's extremely data driven. So what he does is that he uses the data to analyze something like popular misconceptions about various things in World War II. Fascinating series he did on the Battle of Britain, looking at the numbers of aircraft production, flight crew, casualties, and you get a very good knowledge of what happened based on the data he has available. Very good at looking at first-hand evidence, as historians should do. Now, I'm going to do an honourable mention at this point and talk about the Tank Museum at Bovington's own YouTube channel. They have a fascinating series called Tank Chats, where they look at all the vehicles in their collection. They have, I think, the most varied collection of armoured vehicles in the world. And so they have a historian called David Fletcher who looks at, or he'll do a little talk about each particular tank. And he's a real sort of British eccentric, very engaging. So do check out that, but that's not my number 3 choice. My number 3 choice is a channel called The Chieftain. That's the nickname of Nicholas Moran, who is the in-house historian for the World of Tanks game. His background is he was born and raised in Ireland, served in the Irish Army. Then after that, he emigrated to the United States, and he works for World of Tanks. And he's also in the Oregon National Guard as a tank commander, and has served in the US Army in Afghanistan, commanding unit of M1 Abrams tanks. So this gives him a very good first-hand appreciation of military vehicles and also history as well. He is his main series. He goes around the tank museums and tank collections of the world. And he actually gets inside the tanks, so he can show you from inside the tank all the different crew positions, shows you the engine, how things work, and he can make assessments on how effective that vehicle was. And it's an excellent series for the kind of more rivet counter type of history. But he has a funny segment called Help, the Tank's on Fire, where he has to get out of a tank as quickly as possible and see how easy or difficult it was, depending on the vehicles. But he also does a lot of general military history, particularly about World War II. And he's a very engaging personality as well, very interesting person to listen to. And also he is connected to a few other people on this list as well. Indy Nidell, Bernard from Military History Visualized. He's done videos with Bernard. And they have very good chats together. You'll find that the online YouTube history community all kind of know each other, which is nice. My number 2 choice is a chap called The History Guy. I can't recall what his real name is offhand, but he has this series called The History Guy Remembers, and his tagline is, "This is history that deserves to be remembered." He's a really engaging personality. He's the kind that could easily have his own TV show, but doesn't. He has a YouTube channel. And what he does is that he looks at certain events in history, not necessarily military, and he's an American, but it's not necessarily American history either. It's stuff that he finds personally interesting. And he does a short 10-minute piece on a lesser known event in history. So he can use the tagline, anyway, this is history that should be remembered. But again, you're getting 10-minute snippets of something you perhaps wouldn't know about. And he has a very good, engaging style about him. And his passion for the subject clearly shines through. So that's my number 2 choice. My number 1 choice is naturally Lindy Beige. I mean, I would say that he's possibly the most well-known and well-regarded YouTuber historian out there. What to say about him? I mean, it's mostly about him as a personality. He's a very engaging person. I use that word a lot in this video, but he's somebody that can hook you on just on his personal magnetism and the way he can tell a story. I particularly like his style because he can talk for 20 minutes in one take, largely unscripted. This is something I aspire to do myself. And a great raconteur. And his taste in history is very broad. He will talk about World War II, and he'll talk about ancient history and medieval history, and all these other things. And he's very funny about talking about his bugbears in Hollywood films, how they treat ancient or medieval times in films and the historical inaccuracies. Again, he's done videos with The Chieftain, and I think he's done a video with Bernard from Military History Visualized, and you can't help but get swept away by Lindy Bage's enthusiasm and his eclectic style. He's a real British eccentric in that regard. Perhaps not as odd as David Fletcher from the Tank Museum, but definitely. I mean, if you want to learn a bit more and you want to be entertained at the same time, Lindy Bage should be on television. He should have his own TV show. And he is just terrific to watch. So he's my top pick. I hope you like my recommendations. If you haven't seen any of these guys, please do check out their work. If you've got any other recommendations, please pop them in the comments below. And just before I leave, I want to give a shout out to a YouTuber colleague called Radical Liberation. And he's just started the channel. He's got one video up where he basically outlines his political philosophy. He's libertarian, and but he's a great chap who I've done some live streams on another channel with, and yeah, he's just a lovely bloke. And please do give his channel a look, especially as it builds up its video content over the next month. So that's Radical Liberation, and then I've got my top 5 recommendations. Until Sunday, I will see you then on the biscuit.